Hey guys, welcome to the Builder Show, the show where we build builders. My name is Cameron Vogelsang, and I am with my co-host Wilson Betances. We are recording Thursday night because Will has a flight to catch Friday morning. So we are live on Instagram, and this will repost Friday morning for the rest of you. But Will, how's this week been going for you?
It's been amazing. We're over here in Houston, like we talked about in the last podcast. We got to meet a lot of people over here when it comes to the renewable space, the smart integration space. And it's just awesome to see how fast and the demand for electrification is growing. And I know we talked about this previously in so many other podcasts about why this is such a good time to come into electrical because there's so much growth. And Houston is a good example of that, of everything that's going on, all the growth it's just incredible all in all.
Sure. Yeah, one of these days I plan on going to RE, and so we'll see. Hopefully that happens sooner than later. But let's dive into tonight's topic, which is a very debated topic in our industry. And we hear a lot of times contractors and their employees, so apprentices, journeymen, talking about pay for the electrician. And sometimes you have contractors who are saying these guys want so much money and they're not living in reality. And then the employee is saying the same thing to the contractor. You're paying us too little. We live in 2026 now. This is ridiculous. And it seems like there might be some misunderstandings on both sides. We don't want to try to favor one side over the other, but we just want to explore what the contractor deals with as well as what an apprentice deals with, or a journeyman, or any employee for that matter. So, Will, what is this whole thing about pay?
So the one thing I think it comes up often, especially with the last videos that we've been talking about, telling people to come into the trades. Trade has a lot to offer, or hey, how to become a better electrician or apprentice, like the last videos we were saying. Everybody and the comments come to one conclusion where they're saying, well, they're not paying me to do that. They're just paying me to show up, or I get paid from the neck down. That's not my job to train. So we're telling people to come into the trade. There's a lot to offer. People are saying that they can't find a job or that contractors don't want to pay them a livable wage. So we have this big debate that's going on saying basically, why is everyone saying come into the trades if they're not willing to pay for it? Because everyone's promised this millionaire status if you become an electrician, right? So they're thinking, okay, so where's the money? And then they hit the reality of, oh, it takes 3, 4, 5, 6 years, then go get a license before you can start seeing that actual money. Now, are there good paying jobs out there? Absolutely. Are there certifications and licensures that you can go for? Absolutely. Are there registered apprentice programs where companies merit shop and union shop offer with a pay scale to follow? Absolutely. Did you know the Department of Labor has a recommended pay scale for your state? And then it gives you a baseline, and then you can actually go above and beyond? Yes. So all of these things are there. And then there's the contractors who are doing what they have to do. They may be in a tight market, right? And there may be contractors who don't have all the means to do it or want, or, and then there's the bad side, the ones who don't want to do it because they're the capitalists. They want to hoard all that money, you know? So there's definitely both sides or two sides to this coin. But I think it's coming from when people are saying, come into the trades, you can make all this money. And then they come into it and they're saying, what do you mean starting at 14, 15, $16 an hour? Where's this $1 million that I was promised? Does that make sense? I can't hear you.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. Yeah, that makes sense. So it just depends on, well, goodness, we have glitches going on here.
Uh,
It just depends on where you work and what you're doing. But I agree with you. You see these things on social media, these people talking about how much money you can make in the trades, and there is money to be made in the trades for sure. I would say the more you, for lack of better terms, move up in your career, so foreman level, even contractor level, master electrician level, that's where you're really going to make your money. is in those areas. But I I think it's a little misleading when we have people talking on social media about how you can just be a millionaire and make millions and millions going into a trade. It's like, well, what do you mean by that? Do you mean
Mhm.
as like a big shop owner, or are you talking about like an apprentice entering? He could be making all this money in such a short amount of time. So I think there is some misleading, whether it's, I don't know if it's intentional or not, or maybe it's just too vague. But I can tell you right now, coming into the trades, you're not going to be making that kind of money anytime soon. Okay.
Mm.
Um, Also, if you want to flip over to the other side of the coin with the contractor when it comes to pay and stuff, I think that some young people are unaware of the costs that actually go into running a business, especially a shop that's like the size of ours, right? We're not some huge
Mhm.
company with hundreds of employees, but the principle still stands whether you're huge or you're small. Um, there is so much liability, insurance, workers' comp. I mean, those of us who are contractors, this isn't anything new. The cost is just crazy on how much it actually costs to keep an employee times however many employees you have. So,
Mhm.
are there bad bosses out there? Yes. Are there good ones? Yes. Are there employees who don't know what they're talking about? Yes. Are there employees who have a really good point at their workplace? Yes. So I don't think it's like yes or no, black and white for every single context. Does that make sense?
No, it does. It does, especially with what you said, where everyone's expecting, and we're in this generation of expectations versus realities. And at the same time, when you're coming into the trade, yeah, there's organizations that say, hey, come into the job and we'll pay you X amount. That's awesome. Then apply for those jobs. And then if those jobs aren't open, you have to find a merit shop somewhere else, or you got to just go into another industry. And then people talk about the cost of living. Like, I can't live like that. And at the end of the day, it's true. It's tough for everybody. You understand? But there's individuals who are going to make decisions that are based and that's going to be for their needs. So when it comes to this pay, in a perfect world, should everybody be living and making money and doing? Yeah. But what's the reality? You understand? Why is one shop charging one price or paying guys one price and another company's doing another? Now, in a perfect world, should all contractors be paying their guys top dollar if they can? Absolutely. Do I feel like contractors are waking up to say, how do I screw my guys over? How do I keep big business open? I want to keep all this. No, no one's, the most people that we're meeting are not waking up to scam somebody. You understand? And that's just speaking from both sides of the coin. If you have the means and availability to take care of your people, that's everyone's focus because you got to keep your guys going. No one's over here cracking a whip and telling them like bleed from your knees, keep crawling. That doesn't happen now. Or once again, like what you said, is there good shops? Is there bad shops? I think so. And that's on both sides of the coin. But when it comes to young ones coming into the trades, expectations may be high because of the demand, but then the realities of that go, okay, I have to start here. I can get more, but hey, I have bills, or hey, I want to make more money, or there's easier ways to make money without having to break my back being outside in the summer when I can be at Target. All of these things are coming into play. And at the end of the day, you have to make a decision. If you're 18 and you're coming in, welcome to the real world in the sense of you have to make a decision and stick with it at this point. If you're 18, you have to be able to understand, hey, where are you going to put your time and energy into? When we talk about the trades can help you and change your life, it's coming from a position of in time. You understand? Now you can make a living off of it in the beginning. That's awesome, right? Now, are there organizations that can pay more? Absolutely, which is even better if you can get in. But that's the point everyone has to start asking themselves is what does that roadmap look like for me in 1, 2, 3, 4 years? And then are you okay with taking it and living like that? You understand? Because the last thing you want to do is be that guy on a job site who's just complaining every day, saying, oh, I'm not going to pay enough. Then just stay home. You see where I'm coming from? So I think that's a big discussion a lot of people have to have. But at the same time, we have to do better at creating and showing apprentices that roadmap of what's available.
I think you made a great point there. about the roadmap. That's what this is going to depend on, is the roadmap. What do you want from the trades? What do you want to do with your career? That's going to dictate if you stay somewhere or not. That's going to dictate where you start working. Um, I think, again, this isn't a black and white answer, yes or no answer for every single context, but guys who just are content with showing up every day and doing their 9 to 5 and going home, and they're content with that. Hey, like that's something there's something that is commendable there for someone who's content. I think that's a good virtue to have, but at the same time, it can have cons or negatives. If you're going to be that guy, just understand you're not going to be making a lot. I know this isn't all about money. Money's important, right? But you're just going to be an average person making an average income, and so don't expect for great things to happen. You get what you pay for, basically, is what I'm trying to say. If you want to have that comfortable job and not really like put much effort in anything, just live comfortably, then you're going to get that, right? You're going to get your weekends off and you're going to get your steady paycheck, but there's low reward for low risk, and then there's high reward for high risk. And I think that's what this boils down to, is the roadmap. Because while I made $10 an hour when I first started, got bumped to $12 an hour after 2 months, 14, 16, 18, 20 was the most I ever made at my previous job, $20 an hour. And I was okay with that in my specific context and situation, because I knew that I wasn't going to settle there. I wasn't going to go join some other shop, because I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be my own boss. I wanted to have my own company and be a contractor. So guess what? I just wrote it out, started building my tool arsenal, started studying for my test, whatever I needed to do to obtain that. And boom, I was out in, I think, 3 years. 3 years exactly. I became uh, uh, a business owner and opened my own shop and started doing my own thing. And now, everything's been on the up and up ever since then. And so most guys would have, I think, reconsidered the position I was in and maybe left. But for me, it didn't really make sense to hop around over like a few dollars an hour.
And I can see that. And a lot of people, when they're coming in, I think they get under the impression of, and I think this falls back on a lot of contractors, where a contractor, they'll hire an apprentice and at the same time have him at a starting wage. Hey, you're starting at the low side of the totem pole, but then at the end of the day, they want more out of them. So I can see both sides to it. Yeah, it sucks making low money in the beginning. And then it sucks even more when you're expecting journeyman work out of him. Sure enough, because a lot of guys can be
Right.
like, dude, it's not my responsibility to do that. I'm supposed to be learning. I'm supposed to be following an apprenticeship program. I'm supposed to be a helper to you. I'm not supposed to be running a job or be buying myself or going into a live panel. So I feel like that's where the conversation wants to start teetering. Why do so many apprentices now feel exploited? And it could be a variety of things, you know? Oh my God, 4 or 5 years before I make top pay. Or they can be thinking like what we talked about the last post, where like apprentices should be focusing on their career rather than focusing on buying their own tools out of pocket. So why are they buying their own tools if you're supposed to be an apprentice? Then it comes to physically demanding, up early, doing all the grunt work. You're the parts, you're running up and down. I remember in New York City, we had guys on the top floor had to run all the way down to go get material, come right back up. Imagine going up and down, up and down. You're just a parts fetcher. You go to the supply house, come back, go grab the coffee, right? Now they're over here as an apprentice, maybe 6 months in, 8 months in, 1 year in, and they're telling them go land this on a breaker and the panel's live. And they haven't had the experience to work safely. So a lot of people can take the low pay, but then when you start expecting journeyman work out of them, or expecting them to go above and beyond, I feel like that's where a lot of the disconnect is. So that's on the contractor side, putting too much responsibility on somebody who's supposed to be an apprentice. Now, I want to flip it the other way, where so many apprentices come in expecting the moon and back. They're expecting everything. And I feel like that's where we can take this conversation now on some things, maybe what apprentices don't understand what's involved in running a business. And here's the thing: is an apprentice responsible for how a contractor runs his business? No. Is he supposed to keep his stuff in order? Yes. Is he supposed to be taking all the risk and not expecting his employees to take that risk and eat that risk? Yeah. You shouldn't be expecting an employee to wait till you get paid, right? So that they can get paid. That's the risk that you signed up for, not your team. If you can't afford the apprentice, don't hire the apprentice just because you don't want to do the work. So I think there's two sides to the coin. I want to hear what you think on that when it comes to understanding or not understanding what a contractor has to go through now.
So I was a one man shop for I don't know, like a year and a half, 2 years or something, and hired my first employee last year. It's been almost a year, and it's been great. Like no qualms, no issues. We're both on the same page as far as this topic goes. So I can't really relate if contractors are asking like how to deal with X, Y, or Z when it comes to this, because I haven't personally dealt with it. I mean, we can sit here and talk about it, but I see and understand what both sides are saying just by feedback we get online, right? So we can at least have I can at least have this conversation based on what I'm hearing from both sides. And I haven't experienced that bad employee yet, or what we're talking about, the employee who doesn't understand. Like I said, everything has been pretty good so far. He's happy, I'm happy. Um, I do think something that we've all experienced. This is kind of a sub point, but it's related. Is contractors not charging enough? So when you don't charge enough, we all know what that's like. You underbid something, you underprice something, either by mistake or you did it on purpose so you could get the job because you were slow. No matter what the reason is, you underprice the job, and if you do that consistently over and over again, and you're just bidding low all the time, like your numbers are off, yeah, you can't pay your guys well because you are doing things very, very cheap, like at cost, basically. You're not profiting anything. And then you get frustrated because the guys are taking too long, or then there's a callback or two. They messed up. There was a mistake. And now, like, as an owner, you barely made anything. You just made like an hourly rate basically after the whole job was done. And so, like I said, whenever you do that enough over and over and over again, that just becomes your habit, and your routine is underbidding stuff on the regular. Then you can't pay your guys well, and then they get mad. Everyone gets mad, and then everyone starts blaming each other, and then we don't really tackle the root issue, because an employee is not going to go tell his boss that he's underpricing stuff. That's just not going to happen. And so, who's the only person that can do that? Well, that comes down to the contractor himself, but he has to realize that his numbers are off. And so that's what I see happening.
Yep.
Is not saying that this is all on the contractor, because it sometimes sounds like we're always taking the apprentice side. I definitely don't want to sound like that, but it just depends on the context. It depends on the situation, because some guys will say that it's just always the apprentice's fault, and then you have the apprentice who says it's always my boss. He always just coincidentally works for the bad boss.
Mhm.
the boss
Exactly.
the boss by coincidence just has bad employees over and over again. It's
Yeah.
never. How many times have we seen that, Will? The contractor just complaining about his employees all the time, and he's just so unfortunate, and just everyone sucks. It's how
Yep.
many times have you heard the phrase like it's hard to find good work or good help? I
Yep.
mean, good help.
Always.
Yeah,
Always.
yeah.
Always.
So we definitely don't want to be like fully on one side or the other, just for the sake of being on one side or the other. Does that make sense? What do you think?
No, I totally it makes sense. And that's what I want to hear about, because I feel like there could be blame passed around on both sides, just like you said, on the contractors. I want to talk when it comes to situations like that, when it comes to employee to the contractor, I'm just very big on the accountability side of things. I'm big on the self-development side of things, of who at the end of the day is supposed to be leading. Because when it comes to leadership in a team, when it comes to leadership at business, when it comes to leadership in a family, you can say the counter argument is your wife can be saying, well, you're not listening to me. And you're going to say, well, you're not listening to me. At the end of the day, who's the head of the family? Whose responsibility is it to lead? You see where I'm coming from? So an apprentice can say, well, he's a bad boss. And you can say, well, I can't find good help. But at the end of the day, who's leading it? You understand? So at the end of the day, the responsibility does fall on the contractor. And I like to call contractors out because they're the ones who took the risk. They're the ones who are in the position with the liability, with the stress, with all this stuff. And maybe you are a good contractor. Maybe you are trying your best. Maybe you are working very hard, but maybe something's missing in your equation, like you said, your numbers. Because you can be working like a dog, but if your numbers are low and you don't understand your costs and you don't understand how to price a job and you don't know how to navigate that, you're always going to be in the red. So you could be working hard and you're like, why don't I have enough money to pay this guy? Because this kid keeps barking at me every week. Those are things that you have to take into consideration because you're the one who signed up for it. You know, if you can't keep the guy, let him go. Now, are there employees out there who exploit stuff like that, who can never find a good contractor, who's hopping around, who, if you look at his resume, has been with 12 different companies in the last year? Yeah, there's that side to the equation too. But why did you hire him? You see where I'm getting at? I hold contractors to such a high standard where it's like, oh, it was a bad market. Oh, it was bad customers. Oh, it's bad this, bad that. At some point, someone has to stop. Some point, somebody has to go, okay, what's going on? What's in my control? What can I control? What can I fix? What can I remove? And you're the one in that position. Right now, apprentices are looking for opportunities to come in because they were promised this dream. But if they can't find it, or if they happen to be stuck with a bad contractor, they have to recognize, hey, just go somewhere else. And I tell that if you're getting overworked, underpaid, overexploited, you should leave. You understand? But if there's a company like a non-merit shop, merit shop that you chose to go to, that doesn't make him a bad guy. Just like the stigmas that say if you're not this, then you're automatically an evil contractor who's trying to exploit it. Y- It doesn't work like that. You understand? The Department of Labor has those standards, those minimum wages, those starting wages, those progression bars where you can hit every 6 months, 12 months, and you as a contractor can follow it. Now, that's all well said and done. And it's different if you're living through it, because your boss asks you to stay. Yeah, yeah, I'm sorry, I can't do this. At the end of the day, once again, you're 18 years old. You got to make a decision. Do I stay or should I go? You know, but once again, we come back to that core principle of what are you going to work towards? What does that roadmap look like for you? What's your net non-negotiables? If this happens, I'm not staying, I'm moving on. And then you make that decision and you let it rip at that point.
I like that. If you're an apprentice and you're not happy at your workplace and you're not leaving, that just shows more about you than your boss. If you're a contractor and you're complaining about your guys, but you keep them on forever and ever, that says more about you than your employees. You have to know the roadmap both ways, both sides of the coin. You have to know what you're doing. You have to self develop, especially the contractor. You need to take ownership of your business. You need to lead your guys because I'm looking around everywhere and there are successful businesses everywhere with 5, 10, 1,500,000 employees. Do you not think that it's possible for us to have successful businesses? So, anyways, that's my 2 cents on everything. Uh, this whole pay thing. We can talk about this and people can discuss this in a superficial and shallow way about a dollar, but this is so much bigger and there's more issues going on, right? Like, why are you in the trades? What do you want to do? Why are you even going to work? You see, like, we can go on and on about this, but again, I think that at the end of the day, more times than not, it's just going to come down to the contractor and how well he's leading. It doesn't mean that in a specific situation that he's going to be wrong all the time, but you got to look at the whole picture. We're talking about business. We're talking about contractors. You got to look at the whole picture. You know, when a marriage falls apart and a divorce happens, you usually get two sides of the story, and then there's the truth. So it's almost like, I think there's a song about that. I forgot what it's called.
It's every Taylor Swift song out there.
No, she's one-sided.
Oh yeah.
No, seriously, like when you look at a broken marriage that ends in divorce, there's always a side on. There's both people have usually different stories, and then you can kind of figure out what actually happened. But that's not the point. The point is in a marriage, both parties are responsible for how things ended up. We can say that the husband carries more responsibility because that's what he was designed to do. That's what he's created to do, to lead. With that being in mind, though, it's two parties that need to work together to make it work. All right. So, you know, this is a group effort, and this is something that has to be talked about more. And contractors also need to just be honest with themselves instead of just blaming everything on everybody else all the time. Because if stuff's falling apart, yes, you can have some employees that didn't do something right, but you got to work together on this. We have to figure out, okay, like, where did I go wrong? Yes, that was a bad hire? Yeah, that guy's an idiot who I hired. But why'd you hire him? Why'd you hire him? Like, what did you see in him? What, he said he could do this and that? Like, that's what you based off of because he said he could do X, Y, and Z. So, we're at 28 minutes now. Will, do you have any closing thoughts on this topic before we close out?
No, I think basically everything summed up is we have to start asking ourselves, and just like contractors, if you're an apprentice and you keep asking yourself, am I being underpaid? I feel like that goes so hand in hand with so many contractors saying, did I bid this job enough? Right? You're over here, you make a bid, and then you go on Google and you search and you're like, oh no, am I charging enough? What are other guys paying their guys? Right? Or what are other job contractors charging for this type of work? You're so focused on external validation that you don't understand what you have to do for your own company. For your company, are you charging enough? For your company, can I even hire an apprentice at your company? Am I doing everything that I need to do to make sure I have what I need to hire on somebody? You have to start reflecting on those questions and understanding your own circumstance, just like you have to understand your own costs before you give out a number. Because if you're just going to pay an apprentice just what an organization pays, or if you're going to just hire a journeyman just because the stigma is, always get a journeyman, and then you don't have enough work or finances to support a journeyman, you're just setting yourself up for failure. So when it comes to these things, you have to ask yourself, am I doing everything that I need to do to even hire somebody like this for your own circumstances? But then also when it comes as an apprentice and you're like, am I getting underpaid? If you're coming into the trade only focused about the money, now, should you get paid? Absolutely. You're doing work. But if your focus is only about the money, you're never going to be satisfied because you're always going to be chasing a nut. Now, that's like a contractor. If you give a job or you're pricing jobs and competing based off money, someone can always go lower than you. And a lot of people always find people who go lower than you because you're shopping around on price. You shouldn't shop on price. You should shop on value. So if you're an apprentice, you're like, am I getting paid enough? Ask yourself, what am I doing so I can get paid more? How can you bring more value? But then that comes down to this generational question. It's like, well, I shouldn't get paid to do that. That's not my responsibility. Well, guess what? The kid who does will get paid more. There's an expression is dress for the role you want, not the role you have. And then there's also another expression where it goes, you get paid for the work that you do, right? So people are like, well, I'm just going to do what I have to do. I'm just going to do my 9 to 5. But the ones who are willing to put in the work for the future position that he wants, he's eventually going to get that. You know what I mean? You reap what you sow. So the ones who just want to get paid enough to just clock in, clock out, awesome, do it. But you're going to get capped. You're not going to enjoy it. The ones who want to get paid $1 or 50 cents more hopping around, sounds good. You're the one who's going to have that laundry list of resumes and different companies you worked for because you couldn't stick it out with one. But the one who's honest, who's tackling his work, constantly growing, looking for more ways to grow and to be of value, he's going to get paid top dollar on a company, or when he goes on his own, he's going to have that value because he knows what a good day's work is. So that's just my 2 cents. You're muted.
I keep muting myself so you don't hear my coughing, and then I forget to turn myself back on. But yeah, appreciate you guys hopping on this evening, and those of you will see this tomorrow morning when it's posted as a recording. And y'all stay safe out there. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys next week.